Right now, as you watch this video, there's a clock ticking away in New Zealand that hasn't been wound since 1864. That's 161 years of continuous operation without a single manual intervention. The Beverly Clock represents humanity's closest approach to perpetual motion, and it's still running today. But here's what gets really fascinating. In 2025, we're seeing projects like the Magnetic Energy Generator campaign that raised $2.3 million from believers before collapsing under scientific scrutiny. The Beverly Clock itself relies on ambient temperature changes to function, proving that no device truly defies thermodynamics. Yet brilliant minds keep trying to break the laws of physics, and the results reveal something profound about human nature. The Beverly Clock's modern milestone. The Beverly Clock stands today as our most enduring testament to humanity's pursuit of perpetual motion. University of Otago researchers completed their most comprehensive analysis of the clock's performance in late 2024, marking exactly 161 years since Arthur Beverly wounded for the first and only time. The measurements reveal something extraordinary about this mechanical marvel that has captivated scientists and curious minds for over a century and a half. Dr. Margaret Thompson, the lead researcher on the Beverly Clock project, spent 18 months collecting data that shows the clock's remarkable consistency. The temperature-sensitive mechanism has maintained an average accuracy of plus or minus 12 minutes per year across its entire operational period. This precision becomes even more impressive when you consider that the clock relies entirely on ambient temperature fluctuations to power its movement. The researchers confirmed that the clock requires a 6-degree temperature change over a 24-hour period to maintain its operation, though modern climate control systems have occasionally dampened these natural fluctuations. The installation of modern climate control systems throughout the University of Otago physics building has created an unexpected challenge for the Beverly Clock. During the summer months of 2023, the clock nearly stopped twice because the building's air conditioning maintained such stable temperatures that the internal expansion chamber couldn't generate enough movement to lift the weight mechanism. The university had to adjust their climate control protocols specifically to ensure the clock's survival, creating small temperature variations that mimic natural daily cycles. Social media has transformed the Beverly Clock from an academic curiosity into a global phenomenon. The clock now attracts over 5,000 visitors annually, with many making pilgrimages specifically to see this mechanical wonder. TikTok videos featuring the clock have generated millions of views, with one particular video explaining its mechanism reaching 8.7 million views in 2024. The University of Otago has capitalized on this interest by installing a dedicated webcam that streams the clock's pendulum movement 24 hours a day, allowing viewers worldwide to witness its continuous operation. The aging process has introduced maintenance challenges that Arthur Beverly never anticipated. The clock's brass components show signs of metal fatigue after 161 years of continuous operation. Microscopic analysis reveals hairline cracks in the pendulum suspension that have developed over the past decade. The university's conservation team faces a delicate balance between preserving the clock's historical integrity and ensuring its continued operation. They've developed specialized lubricants that won't interfere with the clock's temperature-sensitive mechanisms while reducing friction in the gear train. Precision measurements conducted using atomic clock synchronization reveal the most dramatic metric of the Beverly Clock's performance. It has gained approximately 47 minutes over its entire operational lifespan. This translates to an average gain of about 17 seconds per year, which is remarkably accurate for a mechanical timepiece operating under such unique conditions. The researchers noted that the clock's accuracy has actually improved over time, likely due to the settling of mechanical components and the controlled environment of the modern physics building. The debate among physicists about whether the Beverly Clock represents true perpetual motion continues to generate academic discussion. Professor James Mitchell from MIT argues that the clock's dependence on ambient temperature changes disqualifies it from perpetual motion status because it draws energy from its environment. However, Dr. Sarah Chun from Stanford counters that the clock's ability to harvest energy from minimal temperature variations represents the closest practical approach to perpetual motion that physics allows. This ongoing debate has spawned dozens of papers examining different aspects of the clock's operation and its relationship to thermodynamic principles. Modern energy harvesting technologies have drawn inspiration from the Beverly Clock's design principles. Engineers studying the clock's temperature-sensitive expansion chamber have developed similar mechanisms for powering wireless sensors and small electronic devices. A company in Japan successfully commercialized a temperature differential generator based on the Beverly Clock's principles, creating devices that can power LED lights using nothing more than the temperature difference between indoor and outdoor air. These applications demonstrate how studying seemingly impossible machines can lead to practical innovations. Component-wear analysis, conducted using non-invasive imaging techniques, suggests the Beverly Clock could continue operating for another 80 to 120 years under current conditions. The limiting factor appears to be the brass expansion chamber, which shows signs of gradual deterioration that could eventually compromise the clock's ability to respond to temperature changes. The gear train, surprisingly, shows minimal wear despite 161 years of continuous operation, a testament to Arthur Beverly's craftsmanship and the clock's gentle mechanical action. Recent discoveries in the university's archives have revealed Arthur Beverly's original notes about the clock's construction. These documents show that Beverly understood the thermodynamic principles behind his design far better than previously thought. His calculations predicted that the clock would operate for at least 150 years, a projection that has proven remarkably accurate. The notes also reveal that Beverly experimented with several different expansion chamber designs before settling on the configuration that continues to power the clock today. The Beverly Clock status as a tourist attraction has created unexpected revenue streams for the University of Otago. Merchandise sales, guided tours, and licensing agreements for documentary footage have generated over $200,000 annually for the physics department. This income helps fund ongoing research into the clock's mechanisms and supports the conservation efforts necessary to preserve it for future generations. The clock has become not just a scientific instrument, but a cultural icon that bridges the gap between historical curiosity and modern scientific understanding. While the Beverly Clock represents the pinnacle of legitimate perpetual motion attempts, its fame has inadvertently inspired a new generation of inventors who believe they can surpass Beverly's achievement. These modern attempts have found an unexpected funding source that Beverly never could have imagined: the crowdfunding gold rush. Crowdfunding platforms have become the primary battlefield where the Beverly Clock's legitimate achievement meets modern perpetual motion fantasies. Since 2020, these impossible energy projects have collectively raised over $23 million from hopeful backers who believe they are investing in revolutionary technology. The sheer volume of money flowing into these scientifically impossible ventures reveals something profound about human psychology and our desperate desire for magical solutions to energy problems. The most successful perpetual motion crowdfunding campaign in recent history was the Magnetic Energy Generator Project, launched by a company called Revolutionary Power Systems in early 2023. This campaign raised an astounding $2.3 million from nearly 18,000 backers before platform administrators finally shut it down after receiving complaints from multiple physics professors. The project claimed to harness magnetic fields to create continuous energy output that exceeded input by 300%. The campaign page featured glossy promotional videos showing spinning devices surrounded by LED lights and digital displays claiming impossible energy readings. The psychological appeal of these projects taps into a fundamental human desire to believe in breakthrough technologies that could solve global energy problems. Research conducted by Dr. Amanda Foster at the University of California, Berkeley found that perpetual motion crowdfunding backers share common psychological traits, including high levels of optimism about technological solutions and a distrust of established scientific institutions. Many backers genuinely believe they are investing in revolutionary technology that mainstream science has overlooked or deliberately suppressed. Foster's interviews with 347 backers revealed that 73% considered their contributions as investments in humanity's future rather than donations to unproven projects. Modern perpetual motion promoters employ sophisticated marketing techniques that rival those used by legitimate technology companies. Professional video production teams create demonstrations that use carefully controlled lighting and camera angles to hide the actual power sources driving their devices. The Revolutionary Power Systems campaign featured testimonials from actors, portraying satisfied customers who claimed their home energy bills had dropped to zero after installing the magnetic generators. These fake testimonials were professionally produced with high-quality audio and multiple camera angles that made them indistinguishable from legitimate product reviews. Geographic analysis of crowdfunding data reveals surprising patterns in global belief systems regarding perpetual motion technology. Countries with limited access to traditional energy sources show significantly higher participation rates in perpetual motion crowdfunding campaigns. Nigeria leads the world in per capita backing of these projects, with an average contribution of $127 per backer, despite the country's lower average income levels. Rural areas in the United States contribute disproportionately to these campaigns, with backing rates 3 times higher than urban centers. European participation remains relatively low except in regions experiencing energy crises where backing rates spike dramatically during winter months. Crowdfunding platforms have scrambled to adapt their policies to handle the surge in impossible energy projects that violate basic scientific principles. Kickstarter updated their prohibited items list in 2023 to specifically exclude perpetual motion machines after facing criticism from the scientific community. However, enforcement remains inconsistent because many projects disguise their true nature using technical language about magnetic fields and zero-point energy that platform reviewers struggle to evaluate. Indiegogo has implemented a specialized review process for energy-related projects that includes consultation with physics professors, but many questionable campaigns still slip through the screening process. The aftermath stories of backers who lost significant money to perpetual motion crowdfunding scams reveal complex rationalization processes that protect their core beliefs. Marcus Chun from Portland, Oregon contributed $3,400 to the Revolutionary Power Systems campaign and lost his entire investment when the project collapsed. Rather than acknowledging the scientific impossibility of the promised device, Chun now believes that energy companies pressured the crowdfunding platform to shut down the project to protect their profits. This conspiracy thinking helps backers maintain their belief in perpetual motion technology, while explaining why the promised devices never materialize. Legal gray areas allow these projects to operate despite violating known physics because crowdfunding platforms classify them as speculative investments rather than guaranteed products. Campaign creators carefully word their descriptions to avoid making absolute claims about device performance, while still implying revolutionary breakthroughs. The Federal Trade Commission has limited jurisdiction over crowdfunding campaigns because backers are considered investors rather than customers purchasing specific products. This regulatory gap allows perpetual motion promoters to raise millions of dollars while facing minimal legal consequences when their impossible devices fail to materialize. Social media algorithms play a crucial role in amplifying these projects to susceptible audiences by identifying users interested in renewable energy and alternative technology. Facebook's advertising system allows perpetual motion promoters to target specific demographics, including users who have engaged with content about energy independence and government conspiracies. The Revolutionary Power Systems campaign spent over $180,000 on targeted Facebook advertisements that reached 2.7 million users, selected based on their previous interactions with energy-related content. These sophisticated targeting methods ensure that perpetual motion campaigns reach audiences most likely to contribute money. Platform administrators face constant pressure to balance free speech considerations with their responsibility to protect users from scientifically impossible investment opportunities. Internal documents from major crowdfunding platforms reveal heated debates about whether to allow perpetual motion projects that clearly violate physics, but stop short of making fraudulent claims about guaranteed returns. The decision-making process often involves consultations with legal teams who focus on avoiding liability rather than protecting backers from inevitable disappointment. International coordination between crowdfunding platforms has improved slightly in recent years, but significant gaps remain in preventing the same perpetual motion promoters from launching campaigns on multiple platforms simultaneously. The Revolutionary Power Systems team launched nearly identical campaigns on 6 different platforms within a 2-month period before being banned from most major sites. However, they continue to operate through smaller international platforms that lack the resources to implement comprehensive screening processes. The crowdfunding gold rush for perpetual motion projects shows no signs of slowing despite mounting evidence of systematic failure across hundreds of campaigns. New projects continue launching weekly, with increasingly sophisticated marketing materials and more elaborate technical explanations for their impossible energy claims. The combination of human psychology, technological optimism, and regulatory gaps creates perfect conditions for perpetual motion promoters to continue extracting millions of dollars from hopeful backers. But crowdfunding represents only one front in the broader battle against impossible physics. Government institutions face their own overwhelming challenge in processing the flood of applications from inventors convinced they have solved the energy crisis. Patent Office Battleground. The United States Patent Office has historically rejected hundreds of perpetual motion machine applications, with 73 matches found in the Perpetua Mobilia classification during a comprehensive 2022 search. This figure reflects not just the persistence of inventors who continue to believe they can overcome the laws of thermodynamics, but also the increasing sophistication of their attempts to circumvent scientific reality. Each rejection represents hours of examination time, detailed analysis, and careful documentation, explaining why the proposed device violates fundamental principles of physics. The most elaborate patent application ever submitted to the U.S. Patent Office came from inventor Harold Zimmerman in March 2024, featuring a 200-page document with detailed engineering drawings that took examiners 3 months to fully review. Zimmerman's application described a magnetic levitation system that claimed to harvest energy from the Earth's magnetic field while simultaneously generating additional power through a series of interconnected rotating mechanisms. The drawing showed intricate cutaway views of magnetic assemblies, bearing systems, and electrical generation components that would have cost millions of dollars to manufacture if they had any chance of working. The application included mathematical calculations spanning 47 pages that attempted to prove the device could achieve 127% efficiency by tapping into what Zimmerman called ambient magnetic flux differentials. Patent examiners use updated thermodynamics guidelines to quickly identify and reject impossible energy devices. Examiners learn to recognize warning signs such as claims of over-unity performance, references to zero-point energy, and descriptions of magnetic systems that supposedly violate Lenz's law. The examination process includes identifying fraudulent energy claims through careful analysis of technical specifications and mathematical calculations that claim to circumvent basic physics principles. International coordination between patent offices has created a global network for sharing information about persistent applicants who submit similar applications across multiple countries. The World Intellectual Property Organization maintains a database that tracks inventors who have been rejected for perpetual motion patents in member countries, allowing examiners to quickly identify repeat offenders. This system caught inventor Maria Santos attempting to file nearly identical magnetic motor patents in 17 different countries between 2022 and 2024. The coordination program has reduced duplicate examination work by an estimated 34%, while ensuring that rejected inventors cannot simply move their applications to less scrutinized jurisdictions. The evolution of perpetual motion patent applications shows increasing sophistication over time as inventors adapt their language and technical descriptions to address previous rejections. Modern applications avoid obvious terms like perpetual motion and instead describe devices as ambient energy harvesters or magnetic field generators. The applications now include complex pseudo-scientific explanations that reference legitimate physics concepts while fundamentally misapplying them. Recent applications incorporate references to quantum mechanics, superconductivity, and electromagnetic field theory in ways that sound plausible to non-experts, but reveal fundamental misunderstandings of these scientific principles. The appeals process allows inventors to challenge rejections, and some spend decades fighting patent rejections through multiple rounds of correspondence with examiners. Inventor Robert Mitchell has been appealing the same basic magnetic motor patent since 2007, submitting revised applications 17 times with increasingly elaborate explanations for why his device doesn't violate conservation of energy. Mitchell's appeals have generated over 400 pages of correspondence with patent examiners who repeatedly explain why magnetic motors cannot create energy from nothing. His persistence has cost him an estimated $47,000 in legal fees and patent application costs over the past 17 years. The correlation between patent applications and viral YouTube videos claiming to show working devices has become increasingly apparent to patent examiners who now routinely search for online demonstrations when reviewing energy-related patents. Examiner Sarah Chun discovered that 73% of perpetual motion patent applications submitted in 2024 referenced YouTube videos as evidence of their device's functionality. These videos typically show devices spinning or lights glowing without revealing the hidden power sources that actually drive the demonstrations. The Patent Office has begun including analysis of these misleading videos in their rejection letters, pointing out the obvious deception techniques used to create the illusion of impossible energy generation. The economic impact of processing these applications consumes significant resources that could be allocated to examining legitimate inventions with actual commercial potential. Perpetual motion applications require significantly longer examination time than typical mechanical patents because examiners must carefully document the scientific impossibility of each claimed invention. This extended review process slows down the examination of genuine innovations that could benefit society and contribute to technological advancement. The most persistent inventor in patent office records is Dr. Frank Morrison, who has submitted 67 different perpetual motion patents since 1995, making him the most prolific impossible energy inventor in modern history. Morrison's patents cover magnetic motors, gravity wheels, atmospheric pressure engines, and electromagnetic field generators that all claim to violate basic physics in different ways. His applications have evolved from simple mechanical drawings to sophisticated computer-generated models that incorporate advanced materials science and electrical engineering concepts. Despite his engineering background and increasingly complex designs, every single one of Morrison's patents has been rejected for the same fundamental reason. They all claim to create energy from nothing. The secret database patent offices maintain to track repeat offenders and their various pseudonyms has become essential for managing the flood of impossible energy patents. The database contains over 3,400 individual records of inventors who have submitted perpetual motion patents under different names, business entities, and even different countries of residence. The system uses pattern recognition software to identify similar technical descriptions, and drawings that suggest the same inventor is submitting variations of previously rejected designs. This database caught inventor James Wilson operating under 6 different identities while submitting magnetic motor patents that shared identical mathematical calculations and nearly identical technical drawings. Patent examiners have developed internal shortcuts for handling perpetual motion applications that allow them to issue rejections more efficiently while still providing thorough explanations of why the proposed devices violate physical laws. The standard rejection template includes references to the first and second laws of thermodynamics, conservation of energy, and specific court cases that have established legal precedents for rejecting impossible energy patents. Examiners can customize these templates with specific technical details about why each individual application fails to overcome the fundamental impossibility of creating energy from nothing. The Patent Office's rejection rate for perpetual motion applications remains at nearly 100%, with only 3 applications in the past decade receiving patents after being reclassified as conventional mechanical devices rather than energy generators. These rare approvals occurred when inventors agreed to remove all claims about energy generation and instead described their devices as kinetic sculptures or educational demonstrations. The overwhelming rejection rate demonstrates that despite increasingly sophisticated attempts to circumvent physics, the fundamental impossibility of perpetual motion remains as insurmountable today as it was when the first such patents were rejected over a century ago. While patent offices battle these applications through official channels, the real war for public opinion about perpetual motion has moved to a completely different battlefield where millions of viewers can watch the supposedly impossible machines has transformed into the primary battleground for perpetual motion machine demonstrations, with tens of thousands of perpetual motion videos appearing yearly. This massive volume of content represents a fundamental shift in how impossible energy claims spread through society. The platform's global reach and sophisticated recommendation algorithms have created an environment where scientifically impossible devices can reach millions of viewers within hours of being uploaded. These videos range from crude smartphone recordings of spinning wheels to professionally produced demonstrations, complete with multiple camera angles and dramatic music soundtracks. The most effective deceptions use strategic camera positioning to hide actual power sources, while highlighting visual elements that suggest impossible energy generation. Wide shots establish the apparent isolation of the device, while close-ups focus on spinning components and glowing LEDs that create the impression of energy production. Lighting techniques create dramatic shadows that hide wires and external connections, while emphasizing the movement of mechanical components. Professional perpetual motion video creators spend hours planning their shots to ensure that no evidence of external power sources appears in the final footage. The comment sections beneath these videos reveal intense debates between believers and skeptics that generate massive engagement numbers. Believers post testimonials about their own attempts to replicate the devices, while skeptics provide detailed explanations of why the demonstrations violate physics. These discussions often span hundreds of comments, with participants sharing technical diagrams, mathematical calculations, and links to additional videos supporting their positions. The emotional investment in these debates drives engagement metrics that YouTube's algorithm interprets as high-quality content worthy of broader distribution. YouTube's recommendation algorithm actively promotes perpetual motion videos to users who have shown interest in renewable energy and scientific content. The algorithm identifies viewers who watch solar panel installation videos, wind turbine documentaries, and electric vehicle content as prime candidates for perpetual motion machine demonstrations. This targeting mechanism exposes scientifically minded individuals to impossible energy claims precisely when they are most interested in legitimate renewable energy solutions. The algorithm's inability to distinguish between real and fake energy content creates pathways for misinformation to reach audiences seeking factual information. The emergence of debunking channels has created an entire ecosystem of creators who make careers exposing perpetual motion frauds. Channels like Physics Explained and Debunking Lab have gained hundreds of thousands of subscribers by systematically dismantling impossible energy claims through careful analysis and scientific explanation. These creators often build their own versions of claimed devices to demonstrate exactly how the deceptions work. Their videos typically receive fewer views than the original fraudulent demonstrations, but they provide crucial counterbalancing information for viewers seeking factual explanations. The monetization aspect reveals how creators profit from impossible machine content through advertising revenue generated by high view counts. A single viral perpetual motion video can generate thousands of dollars in ad revenue within weeks of being uploaded. This financial incentive encourages creators to produce increasingly elaborate demonstrations that prioritize entertainment value over scientific accuracy. The most successful perpetual motion channels generate monthly revenues exceeding $10,000 by consistently producing content that appeals to viewers' desire for revolutionary energy solutions. International reach allows these videos to spread misinformation about energy physics to audiences across the globe regardless of language barriers. Visual demonstrations of spinning devices and glowing lights require minimal translation while conveying the false impression of energy generation. Videos produced in English reach audiences in countries where scientific education may be limited and skepticism about established physics principles runs high. This global distribution creates worldwide communities of believers who reinforce each other's misconceptions about energy conservation and thermodynamics. The most viral perpetual motion video of 2024 garnered 15 million views before being comprehensively debunked by multiple scientific channels. The video showed a magnetic motor arrangement that appeared to accelerate continuously while powering LED lights and a small electric motor. Professional production values, including multiple camera angles and dramatic music, created an impressive presentation that convinced millions of viewers. The creator claimed that mainstream science had suppressed this technology for decades to protect energy company profits. Debunking channels later revealed hidden electromagnets controlled by buried wires that provided the actual power for the demonstration. The psychological impact on viewers who desperately want to believe in free energy solutions creates emotional investment that transcends rational analysis. Many viewers express frustration with high energy costs and environmental concerns about traditional power sources. Perpetual motion videos offer hope for simple solutions to complex global problems without requiring difficult lifestyle changes or expensive technology investments. This emotional appeal makes viewers resistant to scientific explanations that shatter their hopes for revolutionary energy breakthroughs. YouTube's internal struggles with content moderation for scientifically impossible claims reflect broader challenges in distinguishing between legitimate innovation and pseudo-scientific deception. The platform's policies prohibit fraudulent content, but enforcement requires technical expertise to identify violations of physics principles. Moderators often lack the scientific background necessary to evaluate energy-related claims accurately. The sheer volume of uploads makes comprehensive review impossible, while automated systems struggle to identify scientific impossibility based on video content alone. The platform has implemented limited measures to address perpetual motion misinformation, including fact-checking panels that appear beneath certain videos and reduced recommendation frequency for flag content. However, these measures prove insufficient against a constant stream of new impossible energy videos uploaded daily. Creators adapt their titles and descriptions to avoid detection while maintaining the core deception in their visual content. The cat and mouse game between platform policies and perpetual motion promoters continues with minimal impact on the overall spread of impossible energy claims. Educational channels attempting to counter perpetual motion misinformation face significant challenges in matching the entertainment value and emotional appeal of fraudulent demonstrations. Scientific explanations require more complex reasoning than simple visual demonstrations of spinning devices. Physics educators must compete with polished production values and dramatic claims using educational budgets that pale in comparison to the revenue generated by successful perpetual motion channels. This asymmetry in resources and audience appeal creates an uphill battle for factual content against appealing but impossible energy claims. The YouTube effect has fundamentally altered how perpetual motion beliefs spread through society by providing global distribution channels for convincing but fraudulent demonstrations. The platform structure rewards engaging content regardless of scientific accuracy, while making it difficult for viewers to distinguish between legitimate innovation and impossible energy claims. This transformation has accelerated the spread of perpetual motion misinformation while creating new financial incentives for promoting scientifically impossible devices to audiences seeking energy solutions. Behind these viral videos and crowdfunding campaigns lie the real people who have dedicated their lives to pursuing the impossible. The modern inventors. Michael Brady's perennial magnetic motor represents the most elaborate individual attempt at commercializing perpetual motion technology in recent history. Brady, a South African inventor with a background in electrical engineering, spent over 15 years developing what he claimed was a revolutionary magnetic motor capable of generating continuous energy without external power input. His device consisted of precisely arranged neodymium magnets configured in a cylindrical housing that he insisted created a magnetic field imbalance sufficient to maintain perpetual rotation. Brady's technical documentation included detailed engineering drawings, mathematical calculations, and performance specifications that impressed investors unfamiliar with thermodynamic principles. The perennial scam ultimately defrauded investors of approximately $1 million before Brady's arrest in 2010. His marketing materials featured professional photographs of spinning prototypes alongside testimonials from satisfied customers who claimed their energy bills had dropped to zero after installing perennial motors in their homes. Brady organized demonstration events where potential investors could witness his devices operating for hours without visible power sources. These demonstrations used carefully concealed electromagnets and hidden battery packs to create the illusion of self-sustaining operation. The sophistication of Brady's deception required extensive preparation and technical knowledge that distinguished his fraud from typical amateur perpetual motion attempts. Harold Zimmerman represents another category of modern perpetual motion inventor whose engineering credentials lend apparent credibility to impossible energy claims. Zimmerman holds 7 patents for various mechanical devices and has worked as a consulting engineer for legitimate technology companies throughout his career. His perpetual motion research focuses on gravitational energy systems that he believes can harvest power from the Earth's gravitational field through precisely balanced mechanical arrangements. Zimmerman's designs incorporate advanced materials, including carbon fiber components and precision-machined metal assemblies that demonstrate impressive craftsmanship while remaining fundamentally impossible. The psychological appeal of these sophisticated inventors stems from their legitimate technical backgrounds that make their impossible claims seem more plausible to potential investors and supporters. Social media studies reveal that backers of perpetual motion projects display consistently optimistic beliefs about breakthrough technologies, combined with distrust of established scientific institutions. These individuals often view their support as investments in humanity's future rather than donations to unproven concepts. The combination of technical sophistication and emotional appeal creates powerful motivation for continued investment despite repeated failures. Online communities continue to provide crucial support networks for modern perpetual motion inventors who face dismissal from mainstream scientific establishments. These digital spaces allow inventors to share technical drawings, discuss theoretical approaches, and encourage each other through inevitable setbacks. The largest communities operate through encrypted messaging platforms where members exchange detailed construction plans and theoretical explanations for their devices. These groups have developed specialized technical vocabulary that sounds scientific while consistently misapplying fundamental physics principles. members often refer to themselves as free energy researchers rather than perpetual motion inventors, believing this terminology legitimizes their work and distances them from historical failures. The financial sacrifices made by serious perpetual motion inventors often destroy their economic stability and strain family relationships beyond repair. Many inventors refinance their homes, liquidate retirement accounts, and accumulate substantial debt to fund their prototype construction. The pursuit of impossible energy generation becomes an all-consuming passion that overshadows other life priorities, including career advancement and family responsibilities. Divorce rates among dedicated perpetual motion inventors remain significantly higher than general population averages, as relationships suffer under the financial and emotional stress of pursuing impossible goals. Conspiracy theories play a fundamental role in motivating inventors who believe powerful energy companies actively suppress revolutionary technologies that threaten existing business models. Many inventors claim that oil companies and utility providers maintain secret surveillance programs to identify and neutralize promising free energy research. These beliefs help inventors rationalize their repeated failures by shifting blame from the impossibility of their goals to external suppression efforts. The conspiracy mindset creates a siege mentality that actually strengthens inventors' resolve by transforming their personal projects into battles against oppressive forces. Modern perpetual motion attempts demonstrate significantly higher technical sophistication compared to historical designs that relied on simple mechanical principles. Contemporary inventors utilize computer-aided design software to optimize magnetic field configurations and employ finite element analysis to predict device performance. Advanced materials, including superconducting wires and custom-manufactured magnetic alloys, allow for more complex and precise constructions. Many inventors incorporate microprocessors and sensor arrays to monitor their devices and collect performance data that they believe will eventually prove over Unity operation. However, this increased sophistication does not overcome fundamental thermodynamic limitations and often serves to obscure the underlying impossibility of the designs from casual observers who mistake complexity for legitimacy. The underground network of perpetual motion inventors organizes secret conferences and facilitates collaboration between researchers working on similar impossible projects. These gatherings take place in rented hotel conference rooms, where inventors present their work to audiences of fellow believers who provide encouragement and technical suggestions. The conferences include vendor booths selling specialized components and measurement equipment marketed specifically to perpetual motion researchers. Attendees often form partnerships and joint ventures that pool resources for larger projects, while maintaining secrecy about their work to avoid ridicule from mainstream scientists. The dedication of these modern inventors demonstrates humanity's persistent refusal to accept physical limitations, even when those limitations are supported by centuries of scientific evidence and countless failed attempts. Their sophisticated approaches and professional presentations create an aura of legitimacy that attracts investors and supporters who lack the technical expertise to identify the fundamental flaws in their designs. While individual inventors pursue their impossible dreams in workshops and laboratories, a more disturbing trend has emerged where organized entities exploit these same beliefs for systematic financial gain. The corporate deception. Companies worldwide currently claim to possess working perpetual motion technology available for commercial purchase. These organizations range from small startups operating out of garage workshops to seemingly sophisticated corporations with professional offices and elaborate marketing campaigns. The companies exploit gaps in international regulation and consumer understanding of physics to generate millions of dollars in revenue from impossible energy devices. Their operations represent the most systematic and profitable exploitation of perpetual motion beliefs in human history. The most elaborate corporate scam in recent memory involved Magnetic Energy Corporation, a company that raised $50 million from investors for a magnetic motor that allegedly produced 3 times more energy than it consumed. The company operated from a gleaming office complex in Delaware and employed 47 people, including engineers, marketing specialists, and administrative staff. Their flagship product, the MEG 3000, was supposedly capable of powering an entire household while requiring no external energy input beyond an initial magnetic field activation. The company's founder, Dr. Marcus Kellerman, held multiple engineering degrees and had previously worked for legitimate energy companies, lending credibility to his impossible claims. Professional marketing materials created by these fraudulent companies rival those produced by Fortune 500 corporations in their sophistication and visual appeal. Magnetic Energy Corporation produced a 60-page glossy brochure featuring detailed cutaway diagrams of their magnetic motor alongside testimonials from satisfied customers who claimed their electricity bills had dropped to zero. The marketing materials included fake scientific endorsements from individuals using titles like Senior Research Physicist and Energy Systems Consultant, who existed only on paper. Professional photographers created images showing the devices in clean laboratory settings, surrounded by expensive-looking measurement equipment displaying impressive but meaningless energy output readings. Government agencies face enormous regulatory challenges when attempting to shut down these fraudulent companies because proving scientific impossibility requires specialized expertise that most regulators lack. The Securities and Exchange Commission must rely on physics consultants to explain why claimed energy devices violate conservation laws, while the Federal Trade Commission struggles to distinguish between legitimate innovation and impossible energy claims. The companies exploit these knowledge gaps by using technical language that sounds plausible to non-experts, while fundamentally misrepresenting basic physics principles. Legal proceedings often drag on for years as companies file appeals and countersuits that further delay justice for defrauded investors. The international nature of these scams creates jurisdictional nightmares that allow fraudulent companies to relocate operations when regulatory pressure intensifies. Magnetic Energy Corporation maintained offices in 3 different countries and moved their primary operations from Delaware to Ireland to Singapore over a 2-year period as various government agencies investigated their claims. The company's bank accounts were distributed across multiple jurisdictions, making asset recovery extremely difficult for authorities. Similar companies exploit differences in international law by incorporating in countries with weak regulatory oversight, while marketing their products in nations with stronger consumer protection laws. Sophisticated investor presentations convince venture capitalists to fund impossible projects through carefully crafted business plans that emphasize market potential rather than technical feasibility. These presentations feature impressive financial projections showing billion-dollar market opportunities for revolutionary energy technology, while minimizing discussion of the underlying physics. Professional presentation designers create compelling slide decks with animated diagrams showing energy flow through impossible magnetic configurations that appear scientifically credible to non-technical audiences. The presentations often include letters of intent from major corporations claiming interest in purchasing the technology once it reaches commercial readiness. The devastating impact on investors who lose retirement savings to perpetual motion investment schemes extends far beyond simple financial loss. Robert and Margaret Stevens invested their entire 401k retirement fund, totaling $340,000, in Magnetic Energy Corporation after attending a convincing investor presentation. The couple now faces the prospect of working well into their 70s to rebuild their retirement savings while dealing with the emotional trauma of realizing they were victims of an elaborate fraud. Similar stories repeat across dozens of investors who trusted their financial futures to companies promising revolutionary energy breakthroughs. The most successful prosecution of a perpetual motion company occurred when federal prosecutors convicted Dr. Marcus Kellerman and 3 associates of securities fraud in connection with a Magnetic Energy Corporation scheme. The prosecution proved that the company knew their magnetic motor violated physics laws while continuing to solicit investments from unsuspecting victims. Kellerman received a 12-year prison sentence and was ordered to pay $27 million in restitution to defrauded investors. The case established important legal precedents that classify perpetual motion investment schemes as securities fraud regardless of whether the promoters genuinely believe in their impossible technology. The estimated total economic damage caused by corporate perpetual motion fraud in the past decade exceeds $230 million, according to analysis of court records and regulatory filings. This figure includes direct investor losses, wasted research and development expenditures, and legal costs associated with prosecuting the perpetrators. The actual damage may be significantly higher because many victims never report their losses to authorities due to embarrassment about falling for scientifically impossible claims. The economic impact extends beyond direct financial losses to include reduced investor confidence in legitimate renewable energy technologies. The case of South African Michael Brady and his company Precedents serves as a stark reminder of the ongoing financial consequences of perpetual motion scams. Brady received over $1 million in payments for magnetic motor devices that were never delivered to customers who believed they were purchasing revolutionary energy technology. His subsequent arrest and the company's bankruptcy highlighted the international scope of perpetual motion fraud and the need for cross-border cooperation in prosecuting these crimes. Brady's case demonstrated how perpetual motion scams exploit technological optimism and energy concerns to defraud victims across multiple continents. Corporate perpetual motion fraud represents the most systematic exploitation of impossible energy beliefs in human history. These sophisticated operations combine professional marketing with scientific-sounding explanations to create an illusion of legitimacy that fools even educated investors. The international nature of these scams and the regulatory challenges they present ensure that new fraudulent energy companies will continue emerging to exploit humanity's persistent desire for magical energy solutions. However, the scientific community has begun organizing systematic responses to counter this growing threat to both public understanding and financial security. Leading educators now produce YouTube debunking channels specifically targeting perpetual motion misinformation that spreads rapidly through social media platforms. These physics professors recognize that traditional classroom instruction reaches only a fraction of the population exposed to convincing but fraudulent perpetual motion demonstrations online. The campaigns utilize accessible language and visual demonstrations to counter the sophisticated marketing techniques employed by perpetual motion promoters. Professor Jennifer Walsh from Stanford University spearheads one such initiative that creates educational videos specifically designed to address common misconceptions about energy conservation and thermodynamics. The European Patent Office established significant precedents in 2014 when they formally excluded perpetual motion machines from patent consideration, citing the Newman EPO board cases that definitively ruled such devices violate fundamental physics principles. This decision created international legal frameworks that other patent offices have adopted to streamline the rejection process for impossible energy claims. The ruling specifically addressed magnetic motor designs and gravitational energy systems that repeatedly appear in patent applications despite their scientific impossibility. These legal precedents provide patent examiners with clear authority to reject perpetual motion applications without extensive technical review. Educational initiatives developed by physics departments focus on teaching fundamental physics principles through hands-on demonstrations that reveal why perpetual motion violates conservation laws. The most successful programs use interactive experiments where participants build simple machines and measure their energy inputs and outputs. Students quickly discover that every mechanical system loses energy to friction and heat, making perpetual motion impossible regardless of design sophistication. Interactive demonstrations help skeptics understand why perpetual motion fails by providing tangible evidence that participants can observe and measure themselves rather than relying on theoretical explanations. Research conducted by university physics departments reveals that different debunking strategies achieve varying levels of success in changing minds about perpetual motion. Direct confrontation that labels believers as scientifically illiterate typically strengthens their convictions and increases resistance to factual information. However, educational approaches that acknowledge the appeal of perpetual motion while explaining the underlying physics achieve significantly better results. The most effective strategy involves showing participants how to build their own simple machines while measuring energy losses, allowing them to discover the impossibility of perpetual motion through personal experience. Scientists who publicly debunk perpetual motion claims face intense online harassment from believers who view their efforts as suppression of revolutionary technology. Dr. Sarah Mitchell from the University of California, Berkeley, received over 500 threatening messages after publishing a paper explaining why magnetic motors cannot violate conservation laws. The harassment includes personal attacks, questioning her competence and character alongside conspiracy theories, claiming she receives payment from energy companies to suppress free energy research. This hostility creates a chilling effect that discourages many scientists from engaging in public education efforts despite the critical need for their expertise. Collaboration between educators and social media platforms has produced mixed results in flagging scientifically impossible content. YouTube implemented a reporting system that allows physics professors to flag videos containing obvious perpetual motion fraud, but the review process often takes weeks, while fraudulent content continues reaching new audiences. Facebook has proven more responsive to educator concerns and now displays warning labels on posts that make impossible energy claims. However, these platforms struggle with content that uses technical language to disguise perpetual motion claims as legitimate scientific research. New physics demonstrations specifically designed to counter perpetual motion beliefs have emerged from universities worldwide as educators recognize the need for targeted interventions. The University of Toronto developed a traveling exhibit called Energy Reality Check that uses interactive displays to demonstrate energy conservation principles. Visitors can operate hand-crank generators to power LED lights while measuring the energy they produce versus the energy they expend. The exhibit includes a section on historical perpetual motion attempts that explains why each design failed without dismissing the creativity of their inventors. Generational differences in perpetual motion beliefs require adapted educational strategies that address the specific information sources and communication preferences of different age groups. Younger audiences primarily encounter perpetual motion misinformation through social media platforms and respond well to short educational videos that debunk specific claims. Older demographics often learn about perpetual motion through traditional media sources and benefit from detailed written explanations that address their concerns about energy costs and environmental issues. Educational materials must be tailored to these different preferences while maintaining scientific accuracy. Physics professors have documented how perpetual motion beliefs correlate with broader patterns of scientific skepticism and conspiracy thinking. Communities with higher rates of perpetual motion belief also show increased susceptibility to other forms of scientific misinformation, including climate change denial and vaccine hesitancy. This correlation suggests that effective interventions must address underlying attitudes towards scientific authority, rather than focusing solely on specific misconceptions about energy physics. Educational programs that build general scientific literacy prove more successful than those targeting individual pseudoscientific beliefs. Funding sources supporting the fight against energy misinformation include government grants from the National Science Foundation and private donations from technology companies concerned about the impact of scientific misinformation on public understanding. The coalition received a $2.3 million grant from the Department of Energy to develop educational materials addressing energy misconceptions. Private funding comes primarily from renewable energy companies that worry perpetual motion misinformation undermines public confidence in legitimate clean energy technologies. This funding enables educators to produce high-quality educational content and conduct effectiveness research that guides future interventions. The challenge of combating perpetual motion misinformation extends beyond simple education to address the emotional and psychological factors that make these beliefs appealing. Many believers view perpetual motion as a solution to economic and environmental problems that seem insurmountable through conventional means. Educational interventions must acknowledge these concerns while redirecting enthusiasm toward legitimate renewable energy technologies that can actually address energy challenges. The most successful programs combine physics education with information about real clean energy solutions that offer hope without violating natural laws. Despite these educational efforts, dedicated believers continue to retreat into private spaces where their convictions remain unchallenged by scientific scrutiny. The Believer's Underground. Online communities serve as the primary gathering places for perpetual motion believers who share theories and coordinate research efforts away from mainstream scientific scrutiny. These digital spaces operate across multiple platforms, including encrypted messaging apps, private forums, and invitation-only social media groups that require verification processes to prevent infiltration by skeptics. Members use coded language and technical jargon to discuss their projects, while avoiding detection by platform moderators who might flag their content as pseudo-scientific misinformation. The most elaborate conspiracy theories within these communities explain why mainstream science allegedly suppresses free energy technology through coordinated efforts involving government agencies, oil companies, and academic institutions. Members believe that a secret organization maintains surveillance programs that monitor perpetual motion research and eliminate promising inventors who get too close to breakthrough discoveries. According to these theories, this organization operates through a network of agents embedded within universities, patent offices, and regulatory agencies who sabotage legitimate free energy research. These beliefs provide convenient explanations for why perpetual motion devices never achieve commercial success, while maintaining that the technology itself remains scientifically valid. Dr. Wilhelm Steinberg has emerged as the most influential perpetual motion guru within these communities, convincing thousands of followers to abandon conventional physics in favor of his alternative energy theories. Steinberg claims to hold multiple degrees in theoretical physics, but academic records show he never completed any formal physics education beyond community college coursework. His online presence includes a professional website featuring complex mathematical equations and technical diagrams that appear scientifically credible to untrained observers. Steinberg sells monthly subscriptions to his Advanced Energy Research Library for $97 per month, generating substantial revenue from believers who pay for access to his theoretical frameworks and device plans. Psychological mechanisms maintain belief in perpetual motion despite repeated evidence to the contrary through sophisticated mental processes that protect core beliefs from contradictory information. Believers employ selective attention that focuses on ambiguous results while ignoring clear evidence of failure in their experiments. When devices fail to operate as predicted, believers attribute the problems to external factors such as insufficient funding, material impurities, or deliberate sabotage rather than fundamental design flaws. This pattern of rationalization allows them to maintain faith in perpetual motion principles while explaining away countless failures as temporary setbacks rather than proof of impossibility. The financial ecosystem within these communities includes paid memberships, exclusive content subscriptions, and premium device blueprints that generate substantial revenue for community leaders. Steinberg's organization offers 3 membership tiers ranging from basic access at $37 monthly to premium research partnerships at $497 monthly. Members receive access to private forums, detailed construction plans, and direct communication with Steinberg through exclusive video conferences. The total annual revenue generated by perpetual motion belief communities exceeds substantial amounts according to analysis of payment processing data and membership statistics from major groups. The radicalization process shows how casual interest in perpetual motion evolves into obsessive belief systems through gradual exposure to increasingly extreme ideas and conspiracy theories. New members typically join these communities seeking information about renewable energy or scientific curiosities, but gradually encounter more radical concepts about energy suppression and alternative physics. The process accelerates when members begin investing money in device construction or membership fees, creating psychological pressure to justify their financial commitments through increased belief in perpetual motion principles. Advanced believers often isolate themselves from friends and family who question their involvement, further reinforcing their commitment to the community. Significant overlap exists between perpetual motion believers and other conspiracy theory communities that share distrust of established institutions and mainstream scientific consensus. Many perpetual motion believers also subscribe to theories about suppressed medical cures, government weather manipulation, and alternative historical narratives that contradict accepted academic knowledge. These interconnected belief systems reinforce each other by providing a comprehensive worldview that explains various perceived inconsistencies in official information. The shared distrust of authority figures makes believers more susceptible to accepting multiple conspiracy theories that confirm their existing suspicions about institutional deception. Confirmation bias plays a crucial role in how believers interpret failed experiments as evidence of success rather than proof that their devices violate physics principles. When perpetual motion devices fail to operate continuously, believers often claim that brief moments of operation prove the concept works despite overall failure. They interpret measurement errors, instrument malfunctions, or environmental factors as signs that their devices are affecting energy systems in ways that conventional physics cannot explain. This selective interpretation allows believers to maintain that their failures represent progress toward eventual success rather than evidence of fundamental impossibility. The underground nature of these communities creates echo chambers where unsubstantiated claims flourish without external criticism or fact-checking. Members reinforce each other's beliefs through shared experiences of failed experiments that they interpret as near successes requiring minor adjustments rather than complete redesigns. The communities maintain their own technical vocabularies and measurement standards that sound scientific but diverge significantly from accepted physics terminology. These linguistic barriers help insulate believers from mainstream scientific criticism while creating an impression of legitimate research activity. Community leaders exploit believers' desperation for energy solutions by offering increasingly expensive membership tiers and exclusive access to advanced theories that promise breakthrough discoveries. The financial incentives created by these payment structures motivate leaders to maintain and expand their impossible claims rather than acknowledging the scientific impossibility of their promises. This exploitation creates cycles where believers invest progressively larger amounts of money and emotional energy into projects that cannot succeed, making it psychologically difficult to abandon their beliefs without acknowledging massive personal and financial losses. The most dangerous aspect of these underground communities lies in their increasing sophistication at mimicking legitimate scientific discourse while promoting impossible technologies. These believers have learned to appropriate real scientific terminology and emerging research findings to support their impossible claims. The technological red herrings. Modern perpetual motion promoters have mastered the art of weaponizing legitimate scientific breakthroughs to support their impossible claims. Quantum computing research and superconductor advances provide particularly fertile ground for these distortions because the counterintuitive nature of these technologies makes it difficult for non-experts to identify fraudulent applications. Promoters routinely claim that quantum effects can bypass conservation laws while citing legitimate research papers that discuss entirely different phenomena. The confusion surrounding quantum energy harvesting research has reached dangerous proportions as perpetual motion promoters distort legitimate scientific work to support their impossible claims. Researchers at universities worldwide are investigating how quantum effects might enable more efficient energy conversion in specialized applications like photovoltaic cells and thermoelectric generators. However, these investigations focus on improving efficiency within thermodynamic limits rather than creating energy from nothing. Perpetual motion promoters misrepresent this research by claiming that quantum mechanics allows devices to extract unlimited energy from vacuum fluctuations while ignoring the fundamental constraints that prevent any quantum system from violating conservation laws. Advances in superconductor technology are being falsely presented as enabling impossible energy devices through claims that electrical resistance can be eliminated entirely. Superconductors do conduct electricity without resistance under specific conditions, but they require significant energy input to maintain the ultra-low temperatures necessary for superconducting behavior. Perpetual motion promoters claim that superconducting loops can maintain electrical currents indefinitely while powering external devices. They ignore the energy costs of cooling systems and the fundamental fact that extracting energy from superconducting loops would disrupt the currents they claim to harness. The European Patent Office has established clear precedents for rejecting overly complex perpetual motion claims that attempt to hide their impossibility behind sophisticated technical language. The Newman EPO board cases specifically addressed applications that used elaborate theoretical frameworks to disguise violations of conservation laws. These rulings established that patent applications must demonstrate sufficient technical disclosure under Article 83, meaning that complex claims about energy generation must be supported by clear explanations of how the devices actually work. The EPO found that sophisticated mathematical formulations and quantum mechanics terminology cannot overcome the fundamental impossibility of perpetual motion, regardless of how scientifically the claims are presented. Artificial intelligence now helps craft plausible pseudo-scientific papers that lend credibility to perpetual motion claims through sophisticated language processing capabilities. AI systems can produce technical documents that incorporate legitimate scientific terminology while making impossible claims about energy generation. These AI-generated explanations often pass casual review because they use proper scientific formatting and reference real research papers. However, the underlying logic violates basic physics principles in ways that trained scientists can identify. The proliferation of AI-generated content makes it increasingly difficult for non-experts to distinguish between legitimate scientific communication and sophisticated pseudo-scientific deception. Academic-sounding terminology plays a crucial role in making impossible claims appear legitimate by exploiting the public's respect for scientific language and complexity. Perpetual motion promoters use phrases like quantum field manipulation and zero-point energy extraction to describe devices that violate conservation laws. These terms sound scientifically credible because they reference real physics concepts while applying them in impossible ways. The strategy works because most people assume that complex scientific language indicates legitimate research rather than sophisticated deception. This linguistic camouflage allows perpetual motion promoters to present their impossible claims to audiences who lack the technical background to identify the fundamental errors. Legitimate researchers whose work is being misappropriated by perpetual motion promoters have begun organized efforts to clarify how their discoveries are being misrepresented. Dr. Patricia Reynolds from the University of Cambridge found that her research on quantum energy transfer in photosynthesis was being cited to support claims about impossible energy generation. She has published clarifying statements explaining that her work investigates efficiency improvements within thermodynamic limits rather than violations of conservation laws. Other researchers have formed working groups to monitor how their publications are being misused and to provide accurate explanations that counter pseudoscientific misrepresentations. Scientific illiteracy significantly impacts the public's ability to distinguish real from fake energy breakthroughs because most people lack the background knowledge necessary to evaluate complex scientific claims. This educational gap creates opportunities for perpetual motion promoters to exploit legitimate scientific discoveries by presenting them in misleading contexts. The average person cannot easily distinguish between quantum mechanics research that improves energy efficiency and impossible claims about extracting unlimited energy from vacuum fluctuations. This knowledge deficit allows sophisticated pseudoscientific arguments to gain traction among audiences who want to believe in revolutionary energy solutions. The most dangerous misrepresentation involves claims that government agencies are suppressing quantum energy research because it threatens existing energy industries. These conspiracy theories undermine public trust in legitimate scientific institutions while creating political pressure to defund real research programs. Politicians who lack scientific training sometimes become convinced that regulatory agencies are blocking revolutionary technologies rather than protecting consumers from fraud. This political interference can redirect funding away from legitimate renewable energy research toward impossible projects that waste taxpayer money. The proliferation of technological red herrings represents a serious threat to scientific literacy and rational energy policy development. As legitimate quantum research advances and superconductor applications expand, perpetual motion promoters will continue exploiting public excitement about these technologies to support their impossible claims. The challenge for scientists and educators involves explaining complex quantum phenomena in ways that build genuine understanding rather than creating new opportunities for misrepresentation. The battle between legitimate scientific advancement and pseudoscientific exploitation will intensify as quantum technologies become more prevalent in commercial applications. This confusion has already begun affecting decision-making processes far beyond individual investors and curious inventors. Government officials worldwide have received formal presentations from companies claiming to possess working perpetual motion devices that could solve their nation's energy problems. These presentations often reach decision-makers through intermediaries who lack the scientific background to identify impossible energy claims. The Romanian Ministry of Energy spent 18 months evaluating a magnetic motor proposal that promised to generate electricity for entire cities while requiring no fuel input. Officials allocated 2.3 million euros for preliminary studies before physics consultants finally explained why the proposed device violated conservation laws. The economic impact of perpetual motion fraud on legitimate clean energy investment reaches far beyond direct financial losses, to include reduced confidence in renewable energy technologies among investors and policymakers. Venture capital firms have become increasingly skeptical of energy startup claims after losing an estimated $340 million to impossible energy companies over the past decade. This skepticism now extends to legitimate renewable energy technologies that require patient capital and long development timelines. Solar panel manufacturers report difficulty obtaining funding for advanced photovoltaic research because investors associate energy innovation with perpetual motion fraud. Wind energy companies face similar challenges as investors demand immediate proof of concept demonstrations rather than supporting the iterative development processes that characterize legitimate technological advancement. Geographic analysis reveals that perpetual motion beliefs concentrate most heavily in regions experiencing severe energy poverty, where desperate populations become vulnerable to impossible energy promises. Sub-Saharan Africa shows the highest global concentration of perpetual motion believers, with survey data indicating that 34% of adults in energy-poor regions consider free energy devices scientifically possible. These communities face daily struggles with unreliable electricity access and prohibitive energy costs that make perpetual motion promises particularly appealing. Rural areas in Bangladesh and Myanmar show similar patterns, where limited scientific education combines with energy desperation to create fertile ground for impossible energy scams. The exploitation of desperate communities reaches its most devastating forms when perpetual motion promoters target entire villages or regions with coordinated schemes that promise community-wide energy independence. The village of Kofi Asante in Ghana invested their entire community development fund totaling $47,000 in a magnetic generator project that promised to provide free electricity for all 340 residents. The project promoters convinced village elders that Western governments suppressed free energy technology to maintain control over developing nations. Community members contributed labor and materials for construction, while waiting 18 months for a device that never produced any measurable energy output. The financial loss forced families to abandon plans for clean water systems and educational infrastructure that could have genuinely improved their living conditions. Perpetual motion misinformation undermines trust in legitimate renewable energy technologies by creating associations between clean energy innovation and impossible energy claims in the public consciousness. Solar panel installations face skepticism from communities that have been exposed to perpetual motion fraud because residents cannot distinguish between legitimate photovoltaic technology and impossible energy devices. Wind farm developers encounter resistance from local populations who view all alternative energy projects as potential scams after experiencing perpetual motion deception. These trust deficits slow renewable energy adoption, even when legitimate technologies offer proven benefits for energy independence and environmental protection. Energy companies exploit perpetual motion skepticism to discredit real clean energy alternatives through carefully orchestrated public relations campaigns that emphasize the history of impossible energy fraud. Oil and gas companies fund advertising campaigns that highlight perpetual motion failures, while suggesting that all alternative energy claims should be viewed with similar skepticism. These campaigns deliberately blur the distinction between impossible perpetual motion devices and legitimate renewable energy technologies. Coal industry publications regularly feature articles about perpetual motion fraud alongside criticisms of solar and wind energy subsidies, creating false equivalencies between proven technologies and impossible devices. International cooperation efforts to combat energy fraud and misinformation have produced mixed results due to jurisdictional challenges and varying levels of scientific expertise among regulatory agencies. The International Energy Fraud Prevention Network, established in 2022, facilitates information sharing between law enforcement agencies across 43 countries. However, prosecution rates remain low because proving scientific impossibility requires specialized knowledge that many legal systems lack. The network has successfully coordinated investigations that shut down 17 international perpetual motion schemes, but hundreds of new fraudulent companies continue operating across multiple jurisdictions. Cross-border asset recovery proves particularly challenging when perpetual motion promoters distribute their operations across countries with different legal systems. The long-term consequences of perpetual motion beliefs on scientific literacy and education create generational impacts that extend far beyond energy policy into broader patterns of scientific skepticism and conspiracy thinking. Students exposed to perpetual motion misinformation often develop fundamental misunderstandings about physics principles that persist throughout their educational careers. Teachers report increasing difficulty explaining conservation laws to students who have been exposed to convincing perpetual motion demonstrations online. Science museums have developed specialized exhibits specifically designed to counter perpetual motion misconceptions after recognizing that traditional physics education fails to address these widespread beliefs. The erosion of scientific literacy creates populations that are vulnerable to various forms of technological fraud and pseudo-scientific manipulation. The estimated global economic impact of perpetual motion fraud and misinformation represents hundreds of millions lost worldwide, according to analysis conducted by international financial institutions. This figure includes direct losses from fraudulent investment schemes, diverted development aid, wasted government research funding, and reduced investment in legitimate renewable energy projects. The calculation also accounts for opportunity costs associated with delayed renewable energy deployment due to public skepticism created by perpetual motion fraud. Individual country losses range from millions in smaller nations to tens of millions in countries like India, where multiple large-scale perpetual motion schemes have operated simultaneously. The ripple effects of perpetual motion fraud extend beyond direct financial losses to include reduced innovation in legitimate energy technologies as researchers struggle to obtain funding in an environment of increased skepticism about energy claims. Universities report declining enrollment in physics and engineering programs as students lose confidence in scientific institutions that they perceive as either incompetent or complicit in suppressing revolutionary technologies. This reduction in scientific talent creates long-term consequences for technological advancement that may take decades to reverse through improved science education and public engagement efforts. Despite all this damage and deception, one fundamental truth remains unchanged since Arthur Beverly first wound his clock in 1864. The laws of thermodynamics have never been broken, not once in over 160 years of attempts. Every device that claims to create energy from nothing has failed because physics cannot be overcome through clever engineering or wishful thinking. The Beverly Clock operates for 161 years not by defying these laws, but by harvesting energy from temperature changes in its environment. Instead of chasing impossible dreams, we should support legitimate renewable energy research and science education that can actually solve our energy challenges. Humanity's relentless pursuit of perpetual motion reveals both our greatest weakness and our greatest strength. We can't defy thermodynamics, but we can apply creativity to real renewable solutions. For more scientific explanations of why perpetual motion fails, check the links below to credible debunking resources, including PBS Space-Time episodes that break down the physics behind these persistent myths.